Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Daily Debate. My name is Ahmed Nader, and tonight we're going to focus on a couple of important topics for the future of Egypt on the global and the international level, and on the economic and the technological level as well here in the country. As for today, we have seen the arrival of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi in Rio de Janeiro of Brazil to be participating in the G20 summit, according to an invitation by the Brazilian President Lula Inácio da Silva from Brazil, and to be focusing on combating hunger, poverty and inequality, for Egypt to be joining the alliance, the global alliance of combating hunger, poverty and inequality by the year 2030. And of course, we'll be shedding more light on the arrival of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi and the participation of Egypt in the G20 summit upon an invitation from the Brazilian President. As for the second topic for today, we'll be focusing on the ICT, the Information Conference for Technology, which was inaugurated here in Cairo for the edition of 2024, the 28th edition, by the Prime Minister of Egypt, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, on behalf of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi, expecting at least 400 exhibitors to be participating in the ICT, in the fields of artificial intelligence, in the fields of the transformation of the digital transformation here in the country, and of course with at least 114,000 visitors expected to be participating in the ICT for 2024. And for the first topic, we will be starting off and kicking off the daily debate with it. I'm honored to be having with me for tonight Dr. Mohamed Abdel Halim, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. We'll be heading first of all to a report about the participation of Egypt in the G20 summit, according to an invitation by the Brazilian President Lula Inácio da Silva today, according to arrival of President Abdel al-Sisi, and the role that Egypt will be playing during the summit on Monday and Tuesday, the 18th and the 19th of November of 2024. We'll be having more details in the upcoming reports, so stay tuned.
Egypt is set to participate in the 2024 G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, marking its fourth appearance at this prestigious gathering of the world's leading economies. President Abdel al-Sisi will represent Egypt at the summit on Monday, following an invitation from Brazilian President Luis Lula da Silva. The invitation underscores Egypt's growing regional and international influence, reflecting its pivotal role in addressing global economic challenges and its promising trajectory fueled by transformative mega projects. Egypt's participation is particularly significant as the G20 faces mounting global crises. The summit comes amidst an increasingly complex international landscape shaped by the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the far-reaching economic and humanitarian repercussions of the ongoing war in Ukraine, and the escalating Israeli aggression in Palestine. These challenges have intensified the need for collaborative global solutions, areas where Egypt has consistently positioned itself as an active, influential voice. Egypt's contribution to international economic dialogue are deeply rooted in its strategic initiatives and development plans. With an economy bolstered by a series of ambitious infrastructure and energy projects, Egypt has become a model for sustainable development in the global south. The country is expected to share insights and propose frameworks for fostering international cooperation to address issues such as food security, energy stability, and equitable economic growth, topics likely to dominate this year's G20 agenda. As the world looks to the G20 for solutions to unprecedented global challenges, Egypt's participation reinforces its role as a constructive partner in shaping the future. The Rio Summit will serve as a platform for Egypt to advocate for collaborative, sustainable strategies that balance economic development with humanitarian concerns, demonstrating the country's vision for an equitable and prosperous global community.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and as I mentioned in the beginning that I'm honored to be having with me over the program for tonight Dr. Mohamed Abdel Halim, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Dr. Mohamed, thank you very much once again for being with us tonight. We have seen over the past report the participation of Egypt. This is the fourth time that Egypt has participated in the G20 summit since its inception in 2008 in Washington. What does this say about the stature of Egypt, about the influence of Egypt in the region and internationally?
Rightly so. I mean, a couple of hours His Excellency did arrive at Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, at an invitation on the part of His Excellency Mr. President Lula da Silva, actually, I mean, to participate and attend the inauguration of the G20 summit, the sort of the international one indeed that would, you know, I mean, discuss and examine a large number of international you know, I mean, subjects of mutual concern and of great deal of interest, actually, not only for the Mediterranean countries, but actually for perhaps the whole global world and the superpowers in the meantime. Yes. It would include, as its own title might indicate and symbolize, those large powers actually constituting, you know, I mean, the ability to select and reject and to discuss and to examine and to reach to ultimate solutions, particularly for impoverished countries with a view of representation, you know, I mean, the problematic situation on the part of, you know, these countries as much as keeping an eye on their own financial inconveniences and inaccuracies, actually, particularly during the course of the last, you know, 2 years, you know, I mean, source of, you know, incidents through which the whole world would pass through tribulations and very much dire financial circumstances, you know, I mean, starting with the COVID-19 pandemic and then the Russian-Ukrainian war and lastly the war on Gaza Strip, yes, as much as the extension of that sort of demolition act to Lebanon, to Beirut particularly, and perhaps, you know, it might be extended actually to what it might be propagated as a sort of regional war that might devour, I would really say, a large number of Mediterranean countries, so to speak. So his own advent in today, a couple of hours actually, to Rio de Janeiro is very much imminent and prominent. That sort of invitation would send a large number of international messages actually to the whole world at large. Perhaps, you know, I mean, this is the case of the Egyptian existence within a very strategic place at the heart of the Middle East, at the heart of the world, that would necessitate its own existence and participation and its own selection as a presidential authority in almost all the affairs, not only the Arab ones, but actually the local, the regional, and the international discussions and examinations of problems that might be of mutual concern and that would leave its own impact on almost all the countries of the world. That sort of state, you know, I mean, acquires a very strategic importance. Particularly, it would lay and would signify the sort of the absolute sense of confidence in the presidential authority to discuss and to manipulate a large number of details. You know, in more than one respect, Egypt has been subjected to you know, I mean, a sort of questioning, a sort of challenges and risks, actually, economic, political, strategic, cultural, military as well. And to the amazement of almost all the whole Western world, as much as the superpowers, even the United States of America, lastly, yes, would think the praises of, you know, the ability of the presidential authority to intercede, to interfere, to put an end for the quagmirish details and the problematic situations that would seem to be quite very much threatening, perhaps even the whole Western world and the United States of America. One example is the sort of the illegal immigration that had been there for quite some time, you know, causing a lot of troubles for the Western world, for the coastal lines of a large number of the European world. And, you know, I mean, Egypt would have the power and the potentiality as much as the capacity to interfere and to put an end for it. And in the meantime, it would discuss and examine a large number of, you know, I mean, details that are of prime concern for almost the whole world, particularly the G20 summit, such as safety and security, the food security, the lack of, chains of supply, and, the alternative sort of energy,
Yes.
and alternating the fossil energy and the classical ones and the traditional ones with new generative source of clean energy, of green energy in the meantime, that would substitute the extreme sense of pollution of which go along a number of summits, the climate change, the BRICS as well, to be quite striking a very good exemplary place for the Egyptian presidency, holding what you might call a permanent position, a permanent place in the BRICS. During the course of the BRICS, and the last year, His Excellency Mr. President Abdel has had the power and the courage actually to intercede and to face the whole European world at large, calling them, to minimize the sort of the debts and to, in the meantime, represent the non-reliability actually of the African countries for the extreme sense of pollution that would seem to be quite devastating the whole world. The African countries would seem to be quite highlighted and internationalized and globalized their own internal indigenous problems for the first time by His Own Excellency's interference to discuss on behalf of almost all the African presidents, representing the sort of hidden dimension actually of, of the blamelessness of the African countries, their own, extreme sense of debts that should be minimized just by way of finding alternatives for the masked unemployment and finding jobs for the recently graduated youth actually. The summit as it stands, including a large number of these superpowers, so to speak, I would really say.
Yes.
And the selection of Egypt actually to be, part and parcel of the strategy, of the schematic detail of representing, solutions for, these international problems would add, a great deal of value for the international as much as the global stature of the Egyptian presidential authority of Egypt as a country, being situated at the heart of the Middle East, discussing, selecting, editing, interfering, and in the meantime striking a very good example, being very much exemplary even for the Western world of its own potentiality and ability, as I've just said, to be as much as active as can be, to put an end for a large number of problematic issues and things that would seem to be quite, disturbing the whole Western world. The whole visit as it stands is commonly regarded as a state visit. And in the meantime, I would really say, as its own title might indicate,
Yes.
towards a just world, free from the problematic issues, and in the meantime, achieving there and then sustainable development and sustainable planet, so to speak. Adding, perpetualizing details actually for the continuation of life in more than one dimension, particularly of the impoverished countries of the world. And in the meantime, I would really think that His Excellency would utilize the chance and would seem to be quite very much, harping every now and again on and on, using the title as it may indicate, as it may symbolize,
Yes.
how to achieve the sense of safety and security, particularly not as it might be propagated actually from economic point of view, as it might be precipitated, because almost all the analytic observers would really, represent their own keen eye on discussing and examining, economic situations and financial monetary systems actually, the most valuable addition from economic point of view. But I would really say that between the politics and economic side of life, actually, there is just some slight line, and both of which would seem to be quite continuating and very much identical with each other. I think that His Own Excellency in today's summit will be harping on and on, not only the economic side, the financial detail, as much as the monetary system and the, all these details, but in the meantime, representing the political side as much as the very much, problematic details of the attack of the Israeli troops on Gaza Strip and their own
Yes.
extension of aggression to Lebanese territorial land, the sort of the thing that would seem to be quite very much maximized during the course of the last 2 weeks, particularly with this final success and the ultimate advent and arrival of Donald Trump actually to Washington D.C. during the course of next January, and his own existence within the Oval Office, that would seem to be quite changing the whole map of the road actually, not only for the American way of life and the Western world, but the Middle East as well, I would really say.
Yes, Doctor, regarding the G20 summit, and one of the milestone messages that will be initiated would be the Global Alliance for Combating Hunger, Inequality and Poverty. How do you see the importance for the G20 summit to be speaking about those important issues, challenges facing the entire world, and more specifically by the end of 2030? And you mentioned a very important point, which is that Egypt could be setting an example of what happened here under the tenure of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi for the past 10 or 11 years, to what happened here could be propagated for the entire world, and more specifically to the developing countries.
It's quite amazing for the Western world, and very much astonishing fact. The sort of the developmental details and astonishing sort of progressive aspects and the modern technological details and digitalization and almost the perfection and almost all the feats, the administrative capital, the extensive fast and very much direct trains, and the rehabilitation of the roads and of the Egyptian roads, the industrial zone at Suez Canal, at Daba power plants in the meantime, as much as the extreme deal of and the extreme sense of the exertion of very much exclusive effort actually of rehabilitating the roads and the bridges and facilitating investment, because without those two modern technological details of perfecting the routes and of establishing and of cultivating as much as reproducing viable roads that would seem to be quite suitable for investment and for attracting investors from abroad. All these details side by side with the minimization of the amount of the daily routine of problematic situations that would face the ordinary indigenous citizens here in Egypt, side by side with the ability of the Egyptian presidency actually to discuss and examine and to simplify and to contact the European world and to get in touch with the Western world to a greater extent, and in the meantime preparing continental programs such as Alexandria Victoria Road, as much as Cape Town Cairo Road.
Yes.
The Silk Road and the Silky Road and the initiation of Belt and the Road. At more than one respected, at a large number of levels actually, the presidency is very much keen and very much interested actually to tackle almost all the dimensions at one go, simultaneously actually representing the financial side, keeping an eye on the individual average citizen, minimizing the amount of the rate, and in the meantime stabilizing the sort of the contracts and the agreements with large European countries. And in the meantime it is one of the striking and admirable, signs on the part of His Own Excellency's diplomatic manipulation of international problematic issues actually is, during the BRICS the last year when he did visit His Own Excellency, Russia tackling with Vladimir Putin a large number of international problems, and in the meantime keeping an eye on the Palestinian cause, tackling there, and then in the meantime, on the sort of the exerted deal of effort towards, uniting one major hard currency just by way of minimizing the superimposition and the dominion of the dollar on almost all the articles and the items. Actually, this is one great major step, and that would add to solving the problem on an international level, particularly when Egypt was being endorsed, has been tackled and endorsed as being a permanent partner of the bridge of the BRICS, and in the meantime adding its evaluative insights into the solving of the problems. All these endeavors are very much appreciated and to a greater extent very much accepted and widely endorsed on the part of almost all the presidents of the Western world, and Narendra Modi actually during the course of the last year the Indian Prime Minister
Yes.
was receiving His Excellency, tackling in the meantime, the problem of the third world countries and the impoverishment on a large scale, and the ability to exchange, what you might call the two-way trade and the free trade, just by way of facilitating the ins and outs, actually, of items, in a way that seems to be far from being traditional way of manipulating and dealing and trading with other European countries. All these attempts on the part of the presidential authority during the course of the last 10 years, particularly concentrating on facilitating and easing the tussles and representing the problems of the area, actually, the Middle East, particularly to a 0 point, and the interference in the meantime of His Own Excellency with his own presidential power, as much as diplomatic details, to facilitate the problem of, transmitting the injured and, of the Gaza's people, actually, through the Karma, Abu Salim and Rafah borderlines.
Yes.
Getting them a way to be in, actually, to be highly medically treated. All these attempts on humanitarian, on medical, as much as cultural and presidential, diplomatic, far away from any military intervention, far away from, what you might call the aggression that might be precipitated in any other country that might be there in the same circumstances. And in the meantime, tackling and inaugurating and harping on the initiative routes are very good exemplary signs on the part of His Own Excellency, actually, that would, strike a very good example for them. For the Western presidents, actually, how problems could be eased and how the tussles could be minimized to a greater extent and reduced, just by way of finalizing the whole situation in favor of almost all concerned. How is never to be very much biased, neither to America or the American administration, nor even to the Russian side, actually. Harping on than that, concentrating on the internal interest of the Egyptian people, and very much concentrating on the welfare of almost all the youth and finding alternatives and jobs for them by the administrative capital, actually, that would abide a large number of thousands and thousands of unemployed youth, actually, who for quite some time was claiming of their own leisureliness and their own vacancies. And all these striking good examples, actually, were being very much straightforwardly transmitted and very much examined with a scrutinizing eye, actually, that would strike a very good example for them that Egypt, as it stands, actually, with its own diplomacy, with its own presidential authority, could be invited, if now and again, to any sort of international summit, just by way of being not only what you might call striking a good example, but strategic partnership, actually,
yes,
and memorandum of understanding that would reach to a great deal of give and take dialogue, actually, and exchanging the mutual concern and the bilateral ties, as much as discussing things of high diplomatic profile existences, actually, that would give us an example at the end of the day of how the G summit, actually, Lula the Salva, actually, how he was very much interested of attracting and inviting and of deciding, actually, that Egypt, by no means, actually, should always be there, part and parcel of the agenda of the schematic details of discussing almost these issues of safety, of security, of poverty, of impoverishment, of stretching a helping hand, actually, for those people who would seem to be in some other circumstances in dire need of being participated, of being selected, of being petted, of being wished and being negotiated with.
Doctor, you mentioned a very important topic, and you have raised a very significant issue we have seen earlier on in the program, and you mentioned that President Abdel al-Sisi had already arrived in Rio de Janeiro to be participating in the 2024 G20 summit, according to an invitation, or upon an invitation, by the Brazilian president. But how do you see the potential discussions between President Abdel al-Sisi and the world leaders during the G20 summit over Monday and Tuesday, the 18th and the 19th of November, specifically strengthening the bilateral ties between Egypt and a number of countries participating I think about 20 countries, including the European Union, are participating as members of the G20 summit, and 19 or 18 other countries will be participating upon an invitation by the Brazilian president. How do you see the importance of boosting bilateral ties by Egypt, represented by His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi, with the rest of the participating countries on the economic and the political level?
Part of the strategic success that is very much, dazzling, I would really say, is not only the European Union that is to be very much participating in the discussion and examination of these large topics, but in the meantime, the African Union. And one of the very much distinguished countries that is to be, invited on the part of Lula da Silva, actually, of Rio de Janeiro, the Brazilian leader, is Egypt, being taken and selected out, actually, of almost all the Egyptian countries. This is a clear testimony to the fact that, Egypt is always there, had always been there, at the top of the agenda, very much deciding almost all the factors of success and intermediating for easing and pacifying almost all large number of details. And in the meantime, the act of selecting Egypt as it stands in more than one respect, in more than one international summit actually, such as the BRICS, the G20, and a large number of other European ones, I would really say, is a clear testimony to the clear sense of confidence in the potentialities of almost the Egyptian presidency in more than one respect, in more than one critical situation actually had been. Egypt had always been there, being examined in the eyes of the Western superpowers, actually, so to speak. And in the meantime was a striking, admirable sense of success and development, actually. All these problems, could be pacified to a greater extent. A clear testimony to, as I just said, the sense of the confidence, as much as the recognition, as much as the acceptance of the Egyptian family, of the Egyptian state, as part and parcel of the agenda on an international level, to be very much in there and in almost any very crucial situation that might occur, for any European world. Egypt had always been there, stretching a hand and being able to give a sort of advice and chancelling, and offering a solution at the end of the day. Not only nowadays, but actually through the early years of the pandemic of COVID-19, Egypt had been consulted to a greater extent from a medical point of view, and His Own Excellency was in the habit of sending a large number of medical aids, of surgeons, of physicians, of doctors, of GBs and general practitioners, actually, to aid the most super, as much as powerful and very much advanced countries, actually. To their own amazement, actually, a third world country would be very much striking in sending all these aids at a time in which almost dust and corpses would seem to be quite repleting and very much, widely spread here, there, and everywhere. In the meantime, His Excellency was very much, adding to the solution of the international problematic situation of the quagmirish detail and the Russian-Ukrainian war. And Vladimir Putin, in more than one respect, would seek his own advices as much as his own interference to try to, for example, solve the problem of the change of supply, of easing the problem by clarifying the Suez Canal, actually, to be able actually to obtain and to pass the vessels and the big ships actually carrying large number of grains and of food, just by way of solving the food security and the food problematic issue and safety in the meantime. That would seem to be quite very much disturbing the whole world to a great extent.
Yes, Dr. Mohamed Abdel Halim, the member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
My pleasure, sir.
Anytime. And of course, this brings us to the end of the first segment of the Daily Debate for tonight, focusing on the arrival of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi in Rio de Janeiro to be participating in the 2024 G20 summit upon an invitation by the Brazilian president to be involved in the Global Alliance for Combating Hunger and Poverty and inequality by the year 2030 and to be setting an example as Egypt has managed and has succeeded in this field, to be setting an example of combating hunger and poverty and inequality over the past 10 or 11 years under the tenure of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi ever since 2014 for the entire world, according to the statements made by Dr. Mohamed Abdel Halim in the first segment. For the other segment, for the second segment of the daily debate for tonight, we will be focusing and will be shedding more light on the inauguration of Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli for the ICT in the Information Conference for Technology, the 2024 edition, hosted by Cairo for the 28th time and hosting about 400 exhibitors this time around, with an expected visitor number of 114,000 for this year and for this edition. We'll be having more details in the upcoming report, so stay tuned.
On behalf of President Abdel al-Sisi, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli inaugurated the 28th edition of Cairo ICT, underscoring the President's commitment to positioning Egypt as a regional leader in information and communication technology. The event, a cornerstone for technological innovation in the Middle East and Africa, is being held from November 17th to 20th at the Egyptian Exhibition Center in New Cairo under the theme The Next Wave. President Sisi's vision for advancing ICT has been instrumental in transforming Egypt into a technology-driven economy. Over the past decade, Egypt has achieved significant milestones in digital transformation, making it a hub for cutting-edge technological solutions and a leader in adopting future-ready innovations. These efforts have bolstered Egypt's international standing as well as its attractiveness as a destination for global tech investments. Cairo ICT 2024 exemplifies this progress, serving as a premier platform to showcase technological advancements and chart the future of innovation. The exhibition is expected to attract more than 114,000 visitors, over 400 exhibitors and hundreds of speakers from across the globe. The event will highlight the latest developments in artificial intelligence, machine learning, smart city solutions, cyber security, blockchain, satellite technology, cloud computing, and more. It offers attendees the opportunity to engage with emerging technologies, explore interactive demonstrations, and participate in discussions with leading industry experts. Themed The Next Wave, the exhibition emphasizes the dynamic evolution of technology and its impact on diverse sectors, from connectivity to data analytics. Cairo ICT not only reinforces Egypt's position as a hub for technological advancement, but also provides a platform for collaboration and knowledge exchange among innovators and investors. It is worth mentioning that President Sisi's relentless pursuit of ICT excellence aligns with the nation's broader strategy of integrating advanced technologies into public services and economic sectors. Initiatives in digital transformation, the development of smart cities, and investment in AI have positioned Egypt at the forefront of technological innovation in the region, with the President's vision emphasizing the importance of technology to drive economic growth, improve governance, and enhance the quality of life for citizens.
Welcome back. You're still watching the daily debate, and for this important topic, I'm honored to be having with me over the phone is Dr. Niveen Makram, the Vice President of the Egyptian Society for the Information Systems and the Computer Technology. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, Doctor.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Anytime. How do you see the importance of holding the Cairo ICT 2024, of course inaugurated by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, and what does this say about the commitment of Egypt of fostering innovation and technological advancement, not just for Egypt, but for the region and the entire world?
Actually, I see that the inauguration of such an important event signifies and emphasizes Egypt's unwavering commitment to driving innovation and technological advancement. We're not only talking about the country, but we're talking about the region, because this event serves as a very powerful platform to showcase the nation's strides in the ICT sector also shows our potential in Egypt to become a global technological hub. I see that that's a very prestigious event, and by hosting such a prestigious and important event, Egypt reinforces its position as a pioneer. We're talking about digital technologies, we're talking about AI technologies, and all of the emerging technologies in different sectors.
Yes, Doctor, and we have seen as well over the past 10 or 11 years under the tenure of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi, relentless efforts, a relentless push by the President and the political leadership in general for the digital transformation here in Egypt. How far have we gone in this field?
Actually, we have applied digital transformation in many governmental services, as we see, and we've also applied it in different sectors, whether we're talking about healthcare or about education, since these two are the priorities of our country. So we've seen many applications, especially in healthcare system,
yes,
and especially with the new health insurance system, the universal health insurance system.
Yes. On the other hand, how do you see the importance of Egypt as being a leader of the information technology and in this field, more specifically the digital transformation for the Middle East and Africa? How do you see the ranking of Egypt within the field nowadays?
Actually, we've done a great job in satisfying what we call the requirements, because before implementing digital transformation or any of these emerging important technologies, we needed first of all to assess our status. So the country works very good in the infrastructure. That was the main challenge for us, and the talented people. We worked on having skilled people in the field of digital transformation and AI as well. So we now have a very better rank, actually.
Yes, yes, Doctor.
Hello, I can hear you.
Dr. Naveen, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you mentioned the importance of artificial intelligence, and I would speak globally. How do you see the importance of artificial intelligence, not just for education and healthcare, but for everyday business nowadays, not just for the Egyptians, but for the global population?
Actually, let's talk about the AI in business.
Yes.
So it's not, as you just mentioned, it's not only about healthcare or about education, but it's about any business, whether we're talking SMEs or we're talking big companies. So we can make use of artificial intelligence technologies and data analytics as well, whenever we're dealing with suppliers, customers, and even with competitors. And that's a very important point, that Egypt should focus on competitive intelligence, being able to have some predictive analytics about competition and our competitive advantages, if we may say. So now we have to adopt many of these technologies in all of our institutions. And I think that currently we're revising the AI strategy in Egypt, since we started this strategy in 2019, and now we're kind of assessing the targets and assessing how we can deal with the current challenges, and working on the second stage in different sectors. And as you just mentioned, we're talking about business in general,
yes,
because business focuses on the economic growth, and that's our focus right now in our country.
So when can we be bearing the fruits of focusing and involving the artificial intelligence, the digital transformation into the Egyptian economy? When can we be seeing the results?
I think it will be very soon, because now we've seen the impact of AI in different sectors, and that's the start. Because actually, whenever we talk about ICT or about AI, it's not only quantitative assessment, but we're also talking about qualitative assessment. Like, for example, we've seen many examples in ICT today in healthcare sector. So again, we're talking about some sectors that are benefiting from AI in the differential diagnosis and in providing personalized treatments. And as we all know, although that's qualitative aspect, but it will definitely have an impact on economy Since here, for example, we're talking about the resource reallocation, talking about planning for what we will be needing in different sectors in the coming 10 years. So AI can help with better resource reallocation, better investments, with using innovation so as to have less expenses and better services, better quality of services, and that definitely will have a great impact on the economy.
Yes, Doctor, we can see at least 400 global exhibitors at the ICT 2024 here in Cairo, inaugurated by Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, as we see today. What does this say about the competitiveness, the appeal of Egypt for this field?
Actually, it shows that Egypt is very strong in the region right now. Whether we're talking about our strategic geographic location or our aim of becoming a vibrant startup ecosystem. So Egypt right now is benefiting of many factors so as to take the lead in the region and in Africa as well. We've worked very hard towards having a better and enhanced technological infrastructure and supportive government policies that will attract many investors in the country, as well as working on having a growing talent pool and actually having talented and skilled people in these emerging technologies was a very important challenge for us.
Yes, Dr. Naveen Makram, the Vice President of the Egyptian Society for the Information Systems and the Computer Technology, thank you very much for being with us tonight over the phone on the Daily Debate. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. I will be leaving you, however, with the presidential activities of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi over the past week, all in the upcoming report. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching. I'll be seeing you tomorrow.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receives at the Ittihadiyya Palace the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar Ibrahim, within the framework of an official visit to Egypt, in concurrence with the marking of the 65th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between both countries. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi arrives in Riyadh to take part in an extraordinary Arab-Islamic summit. President al-Sisi meets King Abdullah II of Jordan on the sidelines of the extraordinary Arab-Islamic summit in Riyadh. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi meets with the Prime Minister of Lebanon, Najib Mikati, on the sidelines of the extraordinary Arab-Islamic summit held in Riyadh, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receives a phone call from the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, Felix Tshisekedi. President al-Sisi receives the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of South Africa, Ronald Lamola.